Hello and welcome to my channel. Well, we actually have some knives out here, don't we? These are some of the knives from my last order that I haven't gone over or talked about a whole lot. And then this is just a knife for a reference. This is a saber knife made in Japan. This is one of the little bit later models. The first models had just 2 digits. But I'm going to talk about something. And that is one of my most viewed and popular videos, maybe because of the title, maybe because it applies, is Are Rough Rider Knives Cheap Chinese Junk? My response. And the thing about that, sometimes I get really passionate, and I had seen a comment, where somebody was saying they're just cheap Chinese junk. And I tried to engage that person in the comment, saying, well, what is it about uh, them that make them junk? And I listed a few things, and he said all of those. I thought, well, come on, give me what do you think? What is it that's really a problem? And the problem was that he had bought one or two. I think it was only one. And the first one that he had some issue. And from that, he went off. And then the other thing I was exploring was the people that were having the issue with the knife was not necessarily the quality of knife. I'm not saying they're the best quality in the world, but they were having an issue with the Chinese government and the communists and everything else. And that's a legitimate thing, because the problem is not the quality of the knife most of the time, considering how much you're paying for the knife, that they're built by hand, they're built fairly well, and the price is very good. Now, that's where the crux of the problem lies, because the reason why Chinese knives are so cheap is because the Chinese government subsidizes the knife company, just like all the other things that they do. What they do is a Chinese company will say, look, to an American company, look, build your stuff over here. Just give us your blueprints and all your intellectual property and everything else, and we'll produce them for you. But we won't, maybe they say they won't copy it, but they do. And the reason is, if you're in America and you're making this knife and you have to abide by all the laws and regulations that we have to protect workers and everything else, and to protect the environment and all that other stuff, it's going to cost more than if you're in China. You don't have any environmental regulations. You don't have any labor laws. The government over in China of any company owns at least 51%. The Communist Party owns at least 51% of everything. And it doesn't matter as far as like ownership. They could only own 2% of the company. But whatever they say goes. And what they do is they subsidize the knives. So if this thing costs, let's say it cost $15 to make over in China with subsidies. Now, I'm this is just from what I know. I'm not super researched into it and everything else. They'll set the price down to $10 or something. Even if it could compete at $15, being sold and everything, they're going to knock it down even lower so that the final price that you get the knife for is $15. Well, American manufacturing companies can't compete with that, and they flood the market. People start buying it. They find out that it's good quality, and not just good quality, but very good quality for the price that you pay. And pretty soon, because American companies can't compete with that, or won't compete with that, it's not able to, because we don't subsidize the knife. America doesn't subsidize the knife companies. They don't give them a bunch of money. Oh, you're an American company. Well, here you go. Here's extra money. Case, if your knives are selling for $60 a knife, we'll give you subsidies so that you can sell it for $40 a knife or $30 a knife. Would you buy it then? Well, of course you would. You know, if you're in America, if you could get a case knife for $20 or $30 less, if the American government had subsidized it, well, then, you know, you as a taxpayer are basically subsidizing the American knife. And we might agree with that, but people that are not into knives and stuff might say, why are my tax dollars going to subsidizing a knife industry? So that's my thought on that. But you can't argue with that they're good quality. Now, you can argue with a lot of times the steel. 440A, I've never said that 440A is a super great steel for edge retention and stuff like that. But edge retention is not the be-all and do-all of a knife. I understand that a lot of people will sit there and do cut tests and everything else, or look at the edge retention of 440A and say, well, that knife is crap. My thought is these knives right here are something that it's a pocket knife. It's something that you put in your pocket, and you may or may not do. Used to be people would do a lot of work with them. You know, if you had a Stockman or something like that, you could do all kinds of work with a pocket knife, and you weren't necessarily doing a lot of hard, steady cutting work. All right, so let's say 440A only cuts, let's say, how many feet of cardboard. You know, we're gonna use cardboard as an example, and we're gonna say, you know, it does a 1 foot cut. I don't do cut tests, but I know people that do, and some people use rope and cardboard and different media and everything else. But what you're doing is basically doing a bunch of cutting and then checking it against something softer like paper or something and see if you get a drag. You know, everybody knows what a cut test is. All right, 440A never performs, you know, super well. You don't get that much more from 440B. 440C performs a lot better than 440A. All right, so right off the bat, they could go to better steels on these if you're worried about edge retention, and Rough Rider has done that. This is VG10. All right, VG10. And then in their Queen line, I got one up in here. Queen uses, I don't know if this, in the Winterbottom one at least, 440C. I love 440C. 440C is great. I love that. So, if traditional knives could still be made to look like this and include 440C instead of 440A, I'd be happy. They also come out with them in traditional looking knives and stuff in D2. Marbles, you know, it's got, I don't have one out here right now, but I've shown that before. But they come out with D2, and if D2 is done right and heat treated properly and everything, it holds an edge much, much better than that. But look, these are just really pocket knives, all right? The main thing that helps, it's not just the steel, it's the thinness, you know, the edge geometry, what type it is and everything. You know what, these knives are like $5 when I was a kid. You know, the steel is just carbon steel, but these suckers are sharp. It's just thin. No, it's not designed to baton and do all this other stuff. It's designed to cut, and they cut well, but they never held an edge super long time, and it was never an issue because we knew how to sharpen knives. If you didn't know how to sharpen a knife back then, you'd get with somebody who did and have them sharpen it for you and stuff like that. But edge retention is not the be-all and do-all of a knife. I understand why people would want to. This one just nicked me when I was closing it like that. I pushed forward and just nicked me. Just say, see, I'm sharp enough. But here you have a traditional, again, it's a traditional pattern, but it's in, you know, aluminum, and this stuff scratches off. I mean, if you wanted to, you could. I haven't used this one a whole lot, but mainly what I'm buying these knives for and stuff is a pocket knife, and I carry at least 3 different knives on me. I have a fixed blade knife, which currently is the Kaiser Harpoon Maverick Custom one. This is the full size, the Deadpool. Maybe it'll darken out a little bit red, but a lot of that micarta is showing up as more white. But it's got good traction on it and everything. It's in D2. You can get them in. I could have gotten it in Nitro V and all this other stuff. It might have been all right. That's not a super pry type of knife. It's more of a cutting knife, and that's what I need. Is cutting. So I'll have a fixed blade. I'll have a flipper, which has to be this one. This is my CJRB Pyrite. It's got the nice little buoy and the pointy blade. I was cutting over some water bottles. It's got the plastic like that. And this thing went pink and just started leaking. A water bottle just started leaking, So I've got that and that. If by that time, the fixed blade is at my waist, the flipper is clipped to the outside of my pocket. And the bottom of the pocket is a traditional knife, usually. And then on my key ring, I'll have here's another. I'm key ring, I'll have a Swiss Army knife, like a little one. See, 440C. I like 440C, like I said. But I'm not really using these knives. It's more of like, it's something that you could whip out. Like if you had all these other knives on you, fixed blade, you had your flipper and everything, but you had your traditional knife in your pocket. If you needed to open up a letter in an office or cut some string, something anywhere, if you had sheeple and they were worried, you whip this out. This they wouldn't think, he's a terrorist, if you yelled out Allah Akbar or something, right before you did that, then it doesn't matter what you got in your hand and how it looks. It's the intent behind it. But that is not near as scary as this to some people. And this might be overkill, but, I like using my knives. And a bigger knife with easier to get and it can cut and everything. Why mess around with trying to flip a knife open or pull a knife open when you've got a fixed blade? All you gotta do is grab hold of the handle and bam, there you go. So I'm not gonna go necessarily into complete detail. I believe this Wasp series was also in VG10, but I might be mistaken. I think, you just have to look at the series. Sometimes it just says stainless steel. This one here is 440A. See, it just says 440. That leads me to another thought. It's just like a razor blade, right? How much edge retention do you have on a razor blade? It doesn't matter. You strop it before you use it. One beard, it doesn't matter. It all depends on what the knife is used for and what you want. If you want something super sharp like a razor blade, carry a strop with you. But don't worry about edge retention. Razor sharp, but it's 440A. These are probably, like maybe 1095, but some kind of carbon steel, made in Japan. They were like $5. You can see the pin. The fit and finish is not bad on this, but we didn't look at that like that. We just looked at it as like, here's a knife. Doesn't matter if this is bone or plastic. I think this one is plastic on the outside, but some of the original ones were bone. My first knife was hiding around here somewhere, but a lot of times you just get Camco. This is a Camillus. Look at this. It's almost like a Fuller, but it's just a non-match strike, type of pull. A little blade, but he's got a nice little coping blade back here. What kind of steel is this? I don't know. Stainless. That's all we really cared about back then. Somebody probably but look, they're all right. Um, you know, you're were we worried about how many feet of cardboard this thing would cut when we were carrying a knife? No. And I don't get on to people that are doing cut tests on 448 because hey, it's valuable information to know. You're not going to see me do a lot of cut tests with stuff because man, that's rough on your body. That's repetitive motion. You look at Cedric and Ada. I mean, he messed up his shoulder and stuff because he was just cut test, cut test, cut. And I can understand if you get into it and everything. If you like to do that, that's fine. Me, I'm old. I'm not going to do that. There are plenty of young people with younger bodies out there that can destroy their body all they want. And yeah, I'll appreciate their doing that because I'm not going to do that. Here's Danny's Lanny and VG10. All I'm saying is, if steel is the thing that's the big thing for you, you can still find traditional knives with better edge retention and everything. But really, think about it. If you know how to sharpen a knife, and the steel you're using is easy to sharpen, like 440A, 440A is very stainless. I can tell you that from right now. It's very stain and stainless resistant. It's not 100%, but I mean, man, it's pretty good for that. And it holds an edge long enough. At least, if you come home every day after whatever you've used your traditional pocket knife for, and it needs to be sharpened, maybe you should stop using a traditional pocket knife or go to a stronger, a better edge retention steel. But that doesn't mean that these knives are junk or they're cheap. They're doing a very good service, which is allowing you to see traditional knife patterns and everything while they're inexpensive. Those days are going away quickly. Like I said before, either because of tariffs or whatever. They've been found out that, I don't think they're going to be around much longer at these prices. But I'm going to keep buying them as long as they are. And don't come at me about the politics of the Chinese government because I agree with you, But to sit there and say that, well, I'm supporting them. Yeah, in a way I am. If I get a $5 knife or a $15 knife, in a way, they're getting what? 10 or 15 cents from me. But the people that are doing that a lot of times were doing it. Why are they applying it to just knives and not to cell phones and all this other stuff where they spend 100 times more than a knife? So as long as I can enjoy my hobby for an inexpensive, quality made knife, yeah, they're not 100% and everything. But when it starts getting out of my range of budget, I'm on Social Security fixed income. I don't, our cost of living rate, what, 2-3%? And, look at the price of everything that went up, and it's still going up. And then the amount of money that people on Social Security get, we're getting hosed over. And I cannot afford, if these things go up to like $30 now, you're not going to see me buying a lot of these anymore. I like that pattern and everything, but I got plenty of knives. I don't need to continue to buy them if they get to be too expensive. So that's just something to think about there. Sorry I didn't go through all these other ones. I just thought I'd have a little rant and ramble because I haven't talked about knives in a while. But that's my purpose for getting traditional pattern knives and stuff. Is just because it's not something that you normally, use or see that much. But it's just nice to have and look at and to mess around with. I started getting into the Winter Bottom series, there for a little bit. I didn't get all of them, And then this is a marbles knife that it's a lockback. You could use it as a work knife. Again, it's going to be 440A. It's not going to hold an edge super long. It depends on what you're using it for. I mean, if it's the only knife you have and you're out in the woods and, you're gutting a deer and everything, maybe you should carry a fixed blade or a sharpening stone. See, that's it again. Just because a knife dulls out. Now, what I'm saying is, it'd be annoying if you want to cut, an envelope open, and it was sharp, and then you go to cut another envelope, just like a piece of fairly tough paper, but it's still paper, and it's dull. Yeah, that'd be annoying. I wouldn't carry one of those. Uh, Only one cut, not that much of a piece of paper, and it's dull. Yeah, I wouldn't carry one of those. I wouldn't have a knife like that. I'd switch to something. Here's another thought. Letter openers, a lot of times, are dull or have like a serrated edge, but a lot of times they're dull, but the geometry of it is so that it can just open a thing without even needing a sharp edge. Something else. 440A is not like that. A lot of times, like I said, it's edge geometry, edge angle, thickness behind the edge. Is it a hollow grind? Is it obtuse? How thick? How thick is the stock? If it's like 20 millimeters wide and it comes down, well, you got yourself a hatchet or something. Yeah, it's not going to cut well no matter what the steel is. So, yeah, just think about that. I try not to get too caught up in edge retention on a knife, up to a certain limit, And if you want to have that capability, you say, all right, I admit that I don't use my knife that much, that the edge gets dull by the time I get home, where I can sharpen or I'm away from sharpening. Then the rest of it is just personal preference. That's perfectly fine, Some of us like to have the performance of a high-performance engine, but not necessarily use it all the time. But if you have to, like if you're passing, that used to be if you were passing. If you need to pass something, there's a slow car in front of you and you finally got a chance, but there's another car coming. If you got a fast enough engine, you can make it. But if your engine's not that fast and it's just not capable of that, you better not pass, because you're going to have a head-on collision or you're going to go in the ditch. With a knife, it's not quite that life and death and everything, Usually you could pull out another blade. That was one of the things they would do, It's like, yeah, okay, this thing only lasted so long. I've got a backup blade right here. If I still need to cut something, yeah, I'm on my backup blade. But if you have a Stockman, you got 3 blades. A canoe's got 2 blades. So, yeah, I think it's perfectly fine to do edge retention, cut tests, and all this other stuff. To do heat, to see if it's heat treated properly, because it's super soft and everything, it's not going to hold an edge that long. But like a K-bar Becker harpoon is rated at 56 to 58 HRC. It's 1095 Crowband steel. That's fine. You don't want to get it up super hard and everything. And yeah, it's not going to hold an edge super long, but guess what? It's going to be fairly tough. Beat the snot out of it and it'll still be all right. So there you go. I drifted off there on mine, but yeah. There's a little rant and ramble for you. I'll try to talk more about knives. Guess what I've got coming in? A knife. I got a knife coming in, and I talked about it in this video. So if you can figure it out, there's no prize or anything. You can just guess. What kind of knife did I order that's coming in that'll be here soon? I ordered also the giveaway knife for February. But I need to get another one because I'm gonna put 2 of them in here. But anyways, that'll be coming pretty soon. Both of them, the new knife that's coming in, and the other one. I mentioned it in here. It's not any of these because I already have these. So, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.